All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this regular meeting to order. A recording and/or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, and the recording and/or broadcast may capture images and sounds of those attending this meeting. We will start with the roll call. Ms. Spicer?
Here.
Mr. Talio?
Here.
Ms. Turkey?
Here.
Mr. Ivanovich?
Here.
I am here. All board members are present. Move on to D2, agenda approval.
I'd like to move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion to approve by Vladimir, second by Shali. I will call the roll. Jessica?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Shali?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. D3, closed session report. No action was taken in closed session. D4, superintendent's update. Mr. Bear.
Brian, most of my my comments are embedded in that first presentation, since that is the bulk of where our work has been these past few months.
All right, moving on to E, the consent calendar.
I'd like to move to
Any
approve the
discussion?
calendar as presented.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? No?
Didn't we have to call out the one edit that needed to be done on the POs? Randy?
Randy, you're muted.
Would you like me to comment, Brian?
Yes, please.
Yeah, there is an error on one of the purchase order reports. So we will be deleting that purchase order. It's to Errant Fox, one of our 10th site consultants, and bringing you the correct purchase order amount for the year at the next board meeting. So you can approve the entire list minus that, or you can, yeah, that would probably be my suggested action.
So I'd like to amend my motion if it's allowed.
Go ahead.
I'd like to move that we approve the consent items with the deletion of one item in the PL list as indicated by Randy.
Charlie, it's secondary, is that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second the amended motion.
All right, any further discussion? I will call the roll. Jessica?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Shali?
Yes.
Vladimir?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion, which was made by Vladimir, second by Shali, passes 5-0. Moving on, section 5, employee request to address the board. Jeff or Marcy, do you know if we have any employees in this slot?
We do have employees in attendance, but I don't see Ricky who usually speaks on behalf of LATA, and I do not see Jason. So unless someone else is speaking on behalf of one of the two organizations.
I don't see raised hands, so we will move along to section G, community comments. This time is reserved for citizens and employees to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on non-agenda items except to instruct the superintendent to review the matter further, report back to the board at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board may make a brief comment or ask clarifying questions. We will now take public comment. If you would like to make comment on an item not on the agenda, please use the raise hand button if you're using the Zoom app, or press *9 if you're using your phone. Do we have anyone who wants to make a comment on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to action discussion items. H1, reopening for the 2020-2021 school year. Staff will review final aspects for the start of said school year. Mr. Bear.
Yes, good evening. Wait just a moment as Marcy brings that up. Thank you. Yeah, wanted to take a few minutes to review with the board and update them where we are on our reopening for the 2021 school year. We know that the end of the 1920 school year was quite adventurous and put us in a position we had never been before with emergency remote teaching. So we have spent the past 3 months plus really looking to how we can launch this school year in a more effective way for all involved, for students, for teachers, and for parents. So with that, you know, we still recognize that we are in the throes of a pandemic. So there are certainly imperfections all around, but we really feel like we have come up with something that is going to be meaningful for our students and really accelerate their learning in a way that we weren't able to do in the spring, and as well as in providing a more robust course of study as well. So Marcy, go ahead. So these are, you know, the board has been, we have been talking to the board about the instructional plan and the reopening of school since June, where we have been discussing the idea of a continuum and what that means for our students and their learning, for our teachers and their instruction as we move forward. And these 3 documents now have evolved into really the core documents that are driving our work. 2 of them you have seen before, 1 you have not. The one on the far left is the one that is our 2021 instructional plan. It's more detailed than what's contained in the document on the far right, our reopening plan. The instructional plan is what you reviewed in June, approved in July, on July 6th, and really are the nuts and bolts of both our LASD virtual school for those families who choose to be 100% virtual, as well as our blended school plan for those families who choose to return to school, at least initially, in an AB format. That, as we talked about at the time, that was the teaching and learning portion of the plan. We knew that the health and safety and the operational aspect of our plan had to be put together as well. You took a look at that at the end of July and gave approval of that. We have turned it into a cleaner document, an easier to read document in what you see on the far right. Those 2 documents are on our website right now on the reopening portion of our lasdschools.org website, and are there for parents to review and staff to review to understand all the precautions we are taking to ensure the safety of everyone as we eventually return to the school campus. We know there will be updates that come during the course of the year. Santa Clara County Public Health Department is continuously making modifications to the plans, so we will continue to do that to our plans too, ensuring that our plan reflects what is in the county health orders. Over the weekend, the Santa Clara County Public Health Department did make some modifications to the reopening document. Not significant modifications, but some. We're still reviewing those, and we'll make sure that those are incorporated into the final document, since a portion of that document is making sure that we do as health orders instruct. The new document here is the one in the center, and this is we're calling it the Family Guide to Virtual Learning, really laying out in greater detail what the virtual learning experience will be for our students. We think that's important since we had to flip pretty suddenly in mid-July to virtual learning for all. This really lays out what a learning plan is, the role students play, the role parents play in those, the guideposts that are there along the way for wayfinding so that children can more easily navigate themselves, the learning plan, and really the learning sequence that students will find in each learning plan be it a mathematics learning plan or a reading or writing learning plan. The core of it and the backbone will be very similar. So we will get that one up on the website. That's also going to be sent out to all staff and all district families after our meeting tomorrow, so that they have that in their hands so they can better understand the plan going forward. So moving on to the next page or the next slide. We have also been proactive. Our health team in the district, our school nurses have been very proactive in getting both staff and families ready for a return to in-person school. Even though we're not there yet, we want to be sure that the core practices are in place for both staff and for students. So the document on the left is for staff members. These talk about hand hygiene and face coverings and cleaning and disinfecting of classrooms and physical distancing. And the student document or the family document has links on it as well, really getting into what good hand washing techniques are. What if you want to make your own face covering? What are the rules about wearing them? Taking them on and off. Performing symptom checks are going to be a critical piece of returning to school safely. And this document is really designed so that students are able to practice at home what we're going to be expecting on our school campuses, so that all of our students are at least familiar with it, so that when we teach and reinforce, when our teachers teach and reinforce those expectations and practices, there's a familiarity with it. So again, that's looking forward for when we return. And those have both already been sent out to both staff and parents at least once. We'll continue to remind them, and those are also on the district's website. All right, next slide. All right, some data. This is as of Thursday. Our numbers are moving just a little bit. We expect them to shift a little bit up to the start of school. But generally speaking, we have about 18 to 20% of our families choosing virtual, full-time, 100% virtual for their students. You can see at the elementary level, that's 533 students who will be in virtual school in the green at the bottom on the left. And you can see what that means in terms of school sizes for the 7 elementary schools who will be operating in blended. And on the right, you can see the same color indications, but you can see the blended students who will be at Egan and Block. And then there's 190 students who will be attending virtual school in 7th and 8th grade. All right, next slide, Marcy. So next, wanted to share with the board some detail about the cohort sizes at each of our schools. Again, same color legend. Red is blended in-person learning, and the green far right column is virtual. But you can see the number of students at each grade level who will be attending each of the schools. There's some highs and lows, but those are the numbers that we, and they never land perfectly in terms of cohort size and splitting classes into, 2 or 3 cohorts with 2 or 3 teachers, but we recognize that this is the trade-off necessary in order to provide the 100% virtual option, is that we're going to have to work through some of the rougher spots after parents make their choices. Okay, so next slide. So with regard to the virtual school, we are creating a school called the LASD Virtual School that we've talked about It is going to have its own set of unique needs that need to be addressed. So there are more than 500 students there. You can see from the data, it is our largest collection of students in a single school. So we have identified a principal for it, Beth Leach, who was a coordinator in the curriculum office, is going to steer that ship this year. When we look at the option of having principal, our 7 elementary principals try to operate both types of schools, it becomes challenging and quite difficult because the teachers teaching those schools aren't necessarily from any one school, nor are the students attending in those classes. And Sandra will talk in just a little bit about the formation of those classes. But if we think about this, there are 21 teachers teaching in the LASD virtual school. And so we made the decision to create a school using those 21 teachers. And as I said, assigning a principal to it. We could have left those teachers. I mean, one path could have been, we could have left those teachers because we're asked the question, why create a virtual school, right? Why not just leave the teachers at the school sites? Well, teachers are attached to school sites and students get assigned to teacher classes. And so if we did leave all the teachers at their existing school sites, we would have teachers or students from across the district being assigned to a teacher's classroom at a school they don't attend, right? So you can imagine if there was an Oak teacher teaching virtually, who is a 6th grade teacher, we would be assigning Springer, Santa Rita, Loyola students to that teacher's class. And so they would be assigned to an Oak teacher and an Oak school teacher in that case. And that didn't make a great deal of sense. So what seemed to make more sense was creating this separate school that we know is going to be temporary, we know is going to be in place for a period of time, and assign teachers and students to that school for the duration. So 2 or 3 sections per grade level is what we have. We have students grouped with neighborhood school peers. And we are going to have, there will be a need for students to have physical materials. So we are going to have periodic pickup of learning materials during the course of the year while students are in virtual school. And over on the right there in the orange box, you see really the chief charge here, right? And this is one we recognize and take very seriously, that we need to accomplish 2 things here, right? We have kids and families who are going to have their feet in 2 worlds. We need to retain their connections with their neighborhood school because that's where they're going to return, right? At some point, be it in 6 weeks, be it in a semester, be it in a year, they're going back to their neighborhood school. So they need to remain a part of that. But it's also vital that they become a part of their classroom community at their virtual school. Being connected to learning and ownership of learning is critical for students to achieve. So we need to accomplish that as well. We know it's going to be a great deal of work for the district, for individual school principals, for parents, but in order to ensure student success, this is vital and we're committed to it. Next slide. Our junior high schools. They have certainly proven to be more complicated in their scheduling for numerous reasons. The period structure, the special education scheduling, and the leveling of math are some of the real key drivers in it. And it is taking longer to really come up with a schedule that is going to work flexibly in the longer term. So right now we are scheduling virtual and blended students together in class for the first quarter, and we're going to commit to distance learning at the junior high school level for the first quarter until October 23rd. We'll see what the health orders are in place at that time, and we'll reassess at that time. But we know this is going to mean that we're going to have to issue new schedules for students as we prepare to begin in that blended learning model. So that's what lies ahead. We're working closely with Keith and Bhavna, and Keith and Bhavna are working with their staffs as well to make sure that this is planned out in a thoughtful manner that works for all of our groups of students and teachers. Next slide. And wanted to give you an update on the waiver. There's already an update on this slide from when I posted it on Friday, but I think you recall that the California Public Health Department orders allowed for a waiver back when those orders were issued on July 17th. Additional clarification was sent out through state public health memo that was dated August 3rd. And as of the time of posting this, we were awaiting Santa Clara County application release. They were putting together an application that was based on the health department requirements. Since this time, we have now received it. So we are looking through that waiver right now and evaluating the application. And I'll have more news for you to follow soon, since we now have that application. One of the things you may or may not have heard, one of the complications going on in the state right now, they may have remedied this, but there were significant problems with the reporting system for communicable diseases, and that was causing delays in the county-wide data that was being posted and using to evaluate whether or not a county was on the monitoring list. So I still haven't seen that site updated as of this afternoon, the California Health Department webpage for county data, but we are waiting for that information also. Sandra, do you want to talk a little bit about formation of, that's the last slide, but you know, have Sandra talk a little bit about formation of cohorts.
Absolutely. So Beth Leach and I have been working on developing kind of this district response to building classes, individual classes for our virtual school. The challenge is, if you know anything about the typical process where teachers spend, you know, a couple of hours every spring developing their class lists, knowing students really well for the coming year. So our challenge this year was we had 533 or whatever the current number is today, students with about 200 teachers across the district. So we had to take a slightly different approach, and it was grounded in the idea that we wanted it to be equitable for all students who opted in or whose families opted into the virtual school. And so we really looked at cohorting groups of peers together, and the numbers were really varied across schools and across grade levels, from 2 to 3 students from a particular grade level in a particular school up to the 20s at a particular grade level in a particular school. So we wanted it to be equitable. So we ensured that no student was a singular student. We had groups, we placed groups of students from their neighborhood schools into classes. And not only did we look at their home school and where they're coming from, but of course we wanted to create those balanced classes and looked at our EL status, our special education or 504 individual needs. We looked at gender, really wanting to create the most balanced classes that we could with the knowledge that we had. Beth also worked with our principal groups, our elementary principals, to understand any really individual, unique needs so that we could meet those needs as well. And then Beth will be working with the classroom teachers to make sure that our virtual students are feeling supported in their new class assignments, that they do have connections with some of their peers. But we want to keep that connection to their homeschool as well. So that is the charge for that entire staff of our virtual school. happy to answer questions about that.
All right, Jeff, anything further, or should we go to board questions?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Are there any board questions before we go to public comment?
I just have one quick question. As it related to the LASD virtual school and pickup of learning materials, am I right in saying that that's also the case for as we're starting the school for everyone? The families that have chose blended learning will be picking up stuff.
Correct.
Absolutely. We're trying to come up with a regular cadence. It's on our principal meeting agenda for tomorrow of that. While we're in this system right now of having a regular cadence of pickups and a regular cadence of collections.
Great, thank you.
And Jessica, I'll say too, is just on the kind of a high level, you just triggered a thought in my mind that the probably the biggest challenge in this is like we're clearly set in the middle of a pandemic here and trying to operate. We really had to look at the idea that we weren't necessarily solving a problem for Oak or Loyola or Covington or Gardner or Santa. We're solving and having to address this issue as an LASD issue, right? This is we need to take care of our children district-wide. We know they are all associated with individual elementary schools and junior high schools, but this is really a community-centered response that we need to, in which we need to ensure that our kids are, receiving support in terms of their social emotional wellness, as well as meeting their academic needs. So we know it's a push, we know it's a challenge, we know there's sacrifice going on everywhere. But we're really focused on that idea of how do we tend to the district's children.
I have a quick question. This is either for Jeff or Sandra, I'm not sure. Do we plan to bring the children in small groups from virtual classes onto campus for a day or perhaps 2 days of being together or not?
So you're talking about the families that have chosen virtual, 100% virtual?
Either that or in the beginning of the school year when we have, we're operating virtually as opposed to, partially blended or not. I don't know. I'm asking the question.
Yeah, so it is something that we're looking at as part of a waiver process. Can we bring individual students onto campus to have a socially distant, physically distant meet? Yet we also recognize that there are 18 to 20% of our families that have chosen 100% virtual, and there's a reason for that as well, right? They don't want that. So we are trying to figure out how we can accomplish that for our kids or our families who have chosen blended, but I don't think we're looking at that for the 100% virtual.
Okay.
I'll just add, we know it's critical that teachers get to know their students at the start of the school year. So we have been working with teachers around, if we can't bring students physically in one by one to meet with them, how can we do it over the computer so students have an individual time with their elementary classroom teacher to get to know them a little bit, and for our teachers to really understand who our students are.
I just think it's important that children have sort of like I don't want to say physical contact because that's not appropriate, but in either circumstances, but have a non-mediated interaction with their teachers on an individual level as opposed to seeing them on some screen someplace. That's all. I'll let you guys figure out what the cadence is and whether, virtual students should be invited. If they want to come, they don't have to come, that kind of stuff. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions before I open it up for public comment? Doesn't look like it. All right, so we will now take public comment on this agenda item. To comment on the agenda item, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Prior to providing your comment, please be sure that your microphone is on. So, looking for hands. Seeing no hands, I will close public comment. Oh, one hand. All right, let's say 3 minutes.
Our first speaker is Kristen Lute.
Okay, sorry, hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
So I did have a question, and I just want to understand. So thank you, Sandra, for talking about the virtual school students and the process that was taken to put them in their classrooms. I think since we haven't seen the classroom lists yet, we don't actually know the cohorts, how they were put in. But there definitely still seems to be a question on that, since they, at least the students from Covington, seem to be spread across all of the grades. Whereas when we had heard these meetings before, the assurances were given that the students would be kept together, from their home schools in the grades themselves. So if we could have just a little more comment on that, or when we might be learning that and how that's going to work, that would be terrific. And then I had 2 other questions about the curriculum and homework, but I'm not sure if those are actually appropriate at this time.
I think, go ahead.
Okay, I was just curious if some of the documents that were coming out were descriptive of what the curriculum would be throughout the year. I think knowing that for the parents ahead of time would really help us help plan, especially for the virtual school students, since obviously that's where I'm coming from on this. And then the second thing was just to know a little bit more about what the plan is for homework, considering not only the virtual school students, but all of the students will be starting off, I think, in a virtual manner. How the homework is going to work. I know that there's probably a lot of concern about the kids obviously being on their screens too much and too long. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who wishes to offer a comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment and give Sandra and Jeff a chance to add anything based on that question, if you'd like.
Do you want to go, Jeff, or do you want me to go?
No, go ahead.
I'll go from the back up on my note. So homework, I think it's something that we'll be working with teachers. I know in our primary grades, we do very little homework, and some of the homework will actually be used in during class time, whether that's in live meets or what have you. We have also been talking with teachers about trying to find that balance of non-digital supports and learning practices for kids. I think it's really critical. A little bit of homework around reading is important. Practicing math that I want to get some fluency around is also an important skill. So I wouldn't expect a lot of homework in our elementary grades, but some homework in that area. And we will try to make it non-digital as possible. And our curriculum, really our curriculum hasn't changed. I would say the delivery of our curriculum is what's changing. We're still following and teaching the state standards. And then each of the subject areas will have a learning plan that will be shared with families week by week, kind of subject area by subject area. So you will be able to see and have direct access to the curriculum, the content, the standards, the instructional videos that students are engaged in that asynchronous, independent time. But nothing, I would say, largely different. I don't know the answer to the question around when will class lists be shared. And I don't know, Jeff, if we've talked to principals about that.
No, we're actually talking to them tomorrow about that. So I think we'll have more information after that.
Yeah, and so that will give you a better sense of, you know, depending by grade level and school, what your cohort of peers looks like for your child's virtual school class. And again, it was so dependent by school and by grade level and what those numbers look like to see how they were distributed across the different classes at the grades in virtual school.
Okay, further board questions, comments? Steve, Vladimir, anything?
All good.
Nobody? Okay. I guess I don't have a ton either. I appreciate the tremendous amount of work that's going into this. I know we've gotten some comments this week indicating that parents were taken aback by various aspects, and I sort of understand that too. It does, you know, but I think that's just a side effect of the circumstances that we're in and the fact that everything feels so different, and there are things that come up sort of at the last minute, just because nobody's ever done this before. And as Jeff said, you know, I think sort of creating, separating off the virtual students as a separate school, I think makes conceptual sense. I think, you know, there's pros and cons. I worry a little bit about sort of cohort comparisons down the road, but I think that's kind of going to be a problem given how much the pandemic's going to change everything, no matter what. I don't particularly want to add to your workload, and given that we're 10 days away from day one of school, but maybe either at our next meeting in August or at September, I would like to have an update on just sort of what we're seeing, how things are going, what adjustments are making. I'm sure this is all stuff that you'd bring to us anyway, but just for the purposes of sort of expectation setting, I just, you know, I want to make sure that we're always thinking about what might be going wrong. How can we tell if it's going wrong? The sort of having families pick up materials so they can do, you know, things hands-on, that makes total sense, but it also makes me nervous for all the families who are already struggling around schedules and childcare, and you know, I have faith that our principals will basically be able to work things out at their school sites. And I know our PTAs will probably be able to help with that as well. But, you know, I do want to make sure that we're sensitive to families who, for any variety of reasons, may have trouble showing up at a particular time to get stuff on any particular day. So,
yes, we have been become quite accustomed to that through the summer with for introduced meals as an example. You know, finding ways to make it happen. We're getting quite good at that.
Okay, I'm trying to think. Unless anybody else has further comments. Thank you again. Thank you in advance to all of our teachers who have been putting in a tremendous amount of work, and I know have the, you know, opening preparation to end all opening preparations to try to get the new paradigm up and running. So we really appreciate both our teachers and all of our staff who are operating in just as changed an environment. And all of our families, as I think somebody said, it's going to take all of us working together to try to do as well as we hope to do this year. So, and as I've said to some people, it'll be an iterative process. So, so I hope that if there are parents out there who see issues come up, please talk to your teachers, talk to your principals, do all the things that we normally ask you to do when you have problems. But especially in this stage, it's going to be even harder for us to tell what might not be working well. So, okay. I guess we will then move on to H2, formation of LASD virtual school. Mr. Baer.
Yes, so using the last presentation as backup to this item, this is an action item looking for the board to approve the request of what is called the CDS code, a county district school code, which will be a unique record-keeping code attached to our LASD virtual school. This will allow students to be credited for a year of completion of the school. It'll be used as the record-keeping number for us when we are audited to understand which schools teachers taught at during the course of this year. So we do need a formal action for the board to approve us requesting a CDS code for the LASD virtual school.
Any preliminary board questions?
Oh, sorry.
No, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Vladimir.
No, Jessica, go ahead.
My quick question is, are there other school districts having to do something like this?
There are. We have fielded a couple of questions from other school districts asking, are you having to do this as well? And we say, yes, we're on that. Kim Albright in our data department is actually the one who's been getting those questions.
Jeff, my question is, to a large extent, this is just a formality. Is that correct? A technical formality. It doesn't actually change the way we deliver our instruction, and it doesn't change the way we look at things. This is simply something that we need to do. It's like getting a social security number.
Correct.
Can I just ask, is this a code permanent, or does it expire after a school year? Like, how does that work?
So no, it remains permanent. And the purpose of the establishment of the school remains permanent as well, actually, because we also pursued using one of our currently inactive codes. We have 4 inactive codes right now, one for Carmel, one for Eastbrook, one for Portola, and one for Hillview, that we also inquired from County Department of Education about activating. And their response was, you should pursue a new code expressly for this purpose, rather than changing the purpose of a previous code.
Any other questions? We'll open this for public comment. To comment on this agenda item, members of the public should use the raise hand button if using the Zoom app, or press *9 if using your phone. Do we have anybody who wishes to comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we will come back to board discussion. Any further board discussion, or if someone would like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request to obtain a CDS code for our new virtual school.
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Vladimir, seconded by Shali. Jeff, did you have something else you wanted to add? Or,
That's it.
oh, okay. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Jessica,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Shali,
Yes.
Vladimir.
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion passes 5-0.
I've got a question. Are you going to name the school after me? Okay, all right. We'll talk about it later.
I don't know if it went out to everybody, but in fact, I believe it's been put in the hands of the students to name and mascot the new school.
I will start my lobbying campaign shortly.
Or Schooly McSchoolface, I'm assuming, will win the naming contest. All right, moving on to board and administration comments. I don't know who to look at first since I don't have the row. Sandra.
I wanted to let you know that we welcomed our new teachers last Friday morning. We had our New Teacher Institute virtually, welcoming our new teachers, psychologists, and speech language pathologists into the district. They spent a portion of time just kind of getting oriented to the district, and then farmed out to some specific training depending on what their kind of role is for the coming year, everything from Spanish teacher to junior high math teacher to our elementary multiple subject teachers. So they continue to have some coaching and training this week as we get ready to launch school. And we're just so excited that we have folks joining us in LASD, and it was great to chat with them Friday morning and tell them what a great organization they're coming into with a group of colleagues who really are the best in the profession, so that they're joining the great ranks of outstanding teachers in our district. So that was exciting. I also wanted to let you know, last week we had 29 of our teachers, our largest number ever, attend a math training through the Silicon Valley Math Initiative. Because again, it was a virtual training. Usually we can send no more than 8 or 10 folks, and it's very expensive. So they opened it up virtually and greatly reduced the cost, which was outstanding. So 29 of our teachers, we usually have to turn folks away, attended that week-long training, and I heard nothing but great feedback around that, which is terrific. Right now, our teachers are engaged in some additional professional development as we launch the year, and it's really focused around trauma-informed practices for teachers and emotional resilience for themselves, and to support the social and emotional development of our students. So we've gotten great feedback from teachers so far, but and we appreciate that they are engaged in that learning prior to launching the school year. And then I was just going to let you know, I attended my new LCAP, same acronym, new definition, the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan training. And I will be coming to you on September 14th for a public hearing of our plan and approval on September 28th. And at some point between now and the 14th, I will write this plan. Hopefully, yeah, it will happen. It will happen. That's it for me.
Okay, Randy?
Nothing to add, Brian.
Okay, Vladimir?
Nothing in particular to add, things that I've done, but what I'd like to do is take this time to thank Jeff and his staff and his teachers and other members of the LASD community for coming together in a really astonishing way to put together a plan that seems to make sense right now, and it seems to be working, and I have great hopes for it. I'd like to point out that there are other districts in the Bay Area which have a much larger staff who have been unable to come together to put together a plan. And I think that one of the reasons why we've been able to do that is because of our outstanding relationship with our teachers. They've been cooperative, we've been cooperative with them, and that has made a huge difference. So I'd like to thank everybody for their work. Cool.
All right, Shally?
I have nothing to add, and we'll piggyback on Vladimir's. Thanks.
Steve?
Same as Sally. Definitely the work, that acknowledging the work is something that we probably don't do enough, but thank you.
Jessica?
Piggyback off of what everybody else has said. I also had the PTA president's meeting this afternoon, which went well, and really want to emphasize, and Vladimir brought this up, is that we also have the parent PTA leadership community really working hard over the summer to figure out what, how they can support us as we go into this year. And I'm just amazed at, every single community member's contribution to bringing us to where we are today. So thank you to every other person who may not have been mentioned.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, go ahead,
If I
Jeff.
could just make a quick comment. I do think it's important to acknowledge what's gone on. We won't see each other in this public forum again until after the first day of school, and I hope to come back reporting positive news about that. But I do think it's critical to recognize, as Vladimir said, the thousands of hours that have gone on during this summer in preparing for next Wednesday, starting with the teachers and the work they did at the end of June and through the summer, and then coming back early in many cases to be ready. They don't want to be caught flat-footed. They want to be ready. They're here to serve our community. So they've done a tremendous job over the summer. We've been working with the Teachers Association all through the month of July and now into August, just in being ready, and our classified employees as well, our support staff, working through the summer, our custodians, our maintenance, to ensure that the school is ready. It has been a great deal of work, and it's really incredible the time, effort, and energy that's gone in. And as Vladimir said, we are very far along. We are in a place where our teachers are more ready than in many places, I believe, around this county and around this state. And it speaks to, in part, to who they are and their dedication. And it also happens because of all the preparation, right? Starting with Sandra and her team in just assembling this school year, right? That has been decades and decades and decades a particular way. And we were charged with reinventing it over the course of 2 or 3 months in the summer. And so to put that together and launch that is remarkable. And Randy with the maintenance and operation leadership and ensuring that our schools are safe to return to. They have been safe all summer as our staff have worked at our school sites. Has really been quite a task. It's a good thing we're not in the boardroom, because the boardroom is packed to the ceiling with PPE ready to go out to the schools this week in preparation for our eventual return. Erin has done a tremendous job with staffing and all of the complications tied up with staffing. And I think of Jennifer Kiker as well. And special education right now is as complicated as it has ever been. And she is just a leader in our county in this, and we are so fortunate to have her. But it's feeling like we are as close to ready to go as we have been. Thank goodness that's moving in the right direction. But we have assembled a tremendous group of people, and they're dedicated to the children and the families of this community. So we are really close to ready to go. So we look forward to bringing you good news on the 24th.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. I actually had one possible future agenda thing that I wanted to run by the group here. We've got an email about whether we'd like to pursue an endorsement of Prop 15, which is I can't remember what the name of it's called, but it's the
Schools and communities.
Measure, right, the measure on the ballot to rejigger property tax. Do we have, if people are interested in bringing that back for possible formal endorsement by the board of that ballot measure, can I get thumbs or no?
I believe that it doesn't affect residential tax, right? It's only commercial and.
Sorry, I meant property. I meant to say property tax. Yes, you would sort of change the property tax format. So at least one. Anybody else? Two. All right, we'll put it on the agenda for next time.
And Brian, one more mention I've forgotten here as I was looking ahead to this year, I'm saying it next year, this year, I think of our principals and how typically they come each year during our board meetings and talk about what has happened, what's going on at their school, what's going well. This is going to be a unique year for that. So we're thinking of how they can do that and how they might represent the work going on at their schools this year with their students. But they typically have the month of July to recharge. Not so much this year. Just recognizing that they have been there, close to day in, day out, really wanting to make it work for every one of their students, their entire school community. So they're really the linchpin to our success on the campuses, working with our staffs each and every day. And I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of call out the crazy work that they've done this summer. So big thanks to them as well.
Indeed. Any other closing thoughts? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.